we're gonna do this live. I think what we're gonna be talking about first is going to be Marcus. Uh, Marcus Mutant Mayor. He is a 3 and a green and a blue. He has, let me do that and then go back to full screen. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. If that creature has a +1/+1 counter on it, if it doesn't, put a +1/+1 counter on it. In the budget version, I think this is a lot better of a version of Marcus than the expensive version. Simply just for the fact that Marcus isn't that great on a higher level, so the game changers really don't help him as much. But still, this deck is really cool and interesting. A lot of the focus is on unblockable creatures. This is the one to do. Yeah, it is. So it's a lot of stuff like Veteran Ice Climber from Tarkir, where it can't be blocked, it has Vigilance. Whenever this creature attacks, up to one target player mills cards equal to its power, allowing us that when we get a +1/+1 counter on it from Marcus, we're making people mill 2. There's stuff like the obvious ones: Triton Shore Stalker, Mistcloaked Herald, Slitherblade, Visible Stalker, Guttle Lurker. Then there's also Gilded Scuttler, which is going to tap a creature an opponent controls and puts a stun counter on it when it enters. It also allows us to be unblockable. Slippery Scoundrel also can be unblockable, but it also can be hexproof if we have the City's Blessing. And Ginger Brute is only unblockable if, as long as an opponent has no hasty creatures, which isn't too common unless you're like running a strategy with it, or like in bigger tables you have stuff like Goldspan Dragon, stuff like that, Urabrask, stuff like that. That's going to be running haste. So Ginger Brute is able to take advantage of lower power tables with this deck. And then it's Silent Hall Creeper is actually another really interesting one, as he can become a copy of any other target creature that we control. And there's a lot of really big important ones: Jumbo Cactuar, Colonian Hydra, Gulta, Giant Adaphage, Hydra Omnivore, stuff like that, where it's going to be giving us a lot of value on attack. Jumbo Cactuar is notorious. It becomes a 10,007 when it attacks. Colonian Hydra doubles the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature we control anytime it attacks. Gulta is Gulta. Giant Adaphage also creates a token copy of itself anytime it deals combat damage to a player. And there's a lot of other effects like that. Managorger Hydra is just a trampler that gets counters. Hydra Omnivore deals that much damage to each opponent whenever it deals combat damage. Cold-Eyed Selkie allows us to draw a bunch of cards. Forgotten Ancient is pretty much the same thing as Managorger Hydra. In a lot of these creatures, they can be made unblockable with all these stuff right here. Stuff like Invisibility, Aqueous Form, Aether Tunnel, Cloak of Mists are all auras that can do that. Then there's also like Psychic Paper and Prowler's Helm that are equipment that can make them unblockable. Trigon Prime puts a +1/+1 counter on itself and a counter onto one other target attacking creature, makes them unblockable. There's Sonic Screwdriver, and Manifold Key, which both make creature unblockable for paying 30 mana. Then Thassa can do it for 2. It also allows us to scry, so we can kind of change what we're getting out of our deck. Support is another thing that I wanted to go through. Ovia is a big one here, because if you go look at a lot of our other big attackers, stuff like Giant Adaphage, Hydra Omnivore, Jumbo Cactuar, and Colonian Hydra, they're all pretty mana intensive. And even some of our unblockable creatures are a little on the pricey side for being unblockable, like Slippery Scoundrel, Gilded Scuttler. and Ferropede. All three of those are a little bit on the more expensive side to get. So with Ovia, you can pay 1 tapper to put a creature onto the battlefield. Plus, if it's an artifact creature, which I actually don't really think we have a whole lot of. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6. It'll put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So there's that. Then you also have stuff like Hardened Scales, which will put an extra counter on things. There's Branching Evolution, which put twice as many. Ohran, which will make our creatures have Death Touch when they attack. Build Great Worm, which is going to be another one, a good one for Ovia to put on the battlefield, especially since we can do it at instant speed. Whenever a creature I control deals combat damage during my turn, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. This also includes against blockers, so even if it's something that's, a little like being chump blocked or something, we can get some extra +1/+1 counters on it. Beastmaster Ascension will get us +5/+5 on all of our creatures after we attack with 5 different creatures. So it'll give us a little bit of extra bonus from that. There's also Stonehoof Chieftain, which whenever another creature attacks on our battlefield, it gains trample and indestructible, allowing us to get some pretty easy attacks out there. Ornery Tumblewag puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature at the beginning of each of our combats. And whenever you saddle it, you will double the number of +1/+1 counters on any creature on our field. So when we have something like a Managorger Hydra, Colonian Hydra, Forgotten Ancient, something like that, or Oran Reef Ooze, if we have one of those with like a bunch of different +1/+1 counters on it, we can easily double it and get a bunch of damage off from that. Simic Ascendancy is going to be an extra win con on top of the typical, on top of the obvious combat strategy, as we'll put growth counters on Simic Ascendancy equal to equal to the number of +1/+1 counters we put on a creature that we control. Then we win the game if we have 20 or more growth counters on it at the beginning of our upkeep. Warhorn was just a cheap one, just to kind of add a little bit of extra power, since green and blue don't really have a whole lot of like big, like widening. What are they called? Like where it makes things bigger, stuff like that. So I wanted to do that, just give us a little bit of an extra oomph in power, especially since a lot of our main attackers are 1/1s or 2/2s at best. Even with the counter from Marcus, it'll only make him a 2 or a 3. So it's going to allow us to get as much out of it as possible. And we also have Invigorating Surge, which will put a +1/+1 counter on target creature control. Then double the number of +1/+1 counters on any creature. Similar to Ornery Tumblewag, this is going to be a way to get us a bunch of extra counters on a creature, such as Colonian Hydra, Managorger, stuff like that. Protection was always something that I kind of felt like I needed with the deck, because I played this a little bit with friends on Tabletop Sim. I actually think I played this deck on stream. Shows how old this deck is. And I wanted to add a little bit of extra like counter spells, protection spells, stuff like that. So there's stuff like Negate, Inspiring Call, Counterspell, and then there is also Cathedral Acolyte, which gives creatures with counters on our field Ward 1. Inexorable Tide is going to give us a bunch of proliferation as well. Same thing with Evolution Sage. And then we have a handful of mana Ramp, Farseek, Cultivate, Kadama's Reach, and Rampant Growth. And Repulsive Mutation is going to give us a bunch of counters on a creature, then also makes an opponent either have their spell be countered or pay a bunch of mana. So that is the budget version. There are a couple other things in here like Twitching Doll, Gyre Sage, stuff like that. They get scarier with the amount of counters on them. Twitching Doll will be able to do stuff like get +1/+1 counters and nest counters on it. We could start proliferating those. Then make a bunch of spider tokens that we can start swinging in. Gyre Sage is going to make us a ton of mana for each counter on it. A Ricksmiths is going to be a huge impact on that, as it's going to be a big mana rock as well as a pretty dangerous creature once we're able to get it up and running. Hey everybody, I just wanted to quickly do like a little jump in here. I just wanted to let you guys make sure everyone knew that I have a Discord channel. It's linked in the description below, but also to go check out the video that I uploaded on Tuesday of the Mortal Kombat Lost Media. I highly recommend looking it out or checking it out. It'll be a little bit of it right here in the top, but it is also because I am looking for a piece of Lost Media here, and I'm really hoping for some help on it. The E3 builds, Mortal Kombat Deception, Deadly Alliance, and Armageddon, I've been somewhat on the hunt for the past about year now, just periodically, but over the past couple weeks, I've really started to go through it. I've been talking to people like Dayrax and stuff, as well as emailing a bunch of other people about the information on it. So if anyone can help me out with that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Go check out the Discord, DM me in there, and let's see if we can find this. Now, back on with the video. So, that is the budget version. But we can go back here. Go to the Castle of Jacobstown, which is our expensive version. This one is going from $53.68 to $2,158.72. Now, this one went more with the whole counter effect. Stuff like Innkeeper's Talent, Pure, Doubling Season, Earth Crystal, and Kami Whisper Hopes are in here on top of the Branching Evolution. That way we're just trying to get as many counters on our creatures as possible. Other impact such as Terra Symbiosis, which will put get us a bunch of cards on top of us getting +1/+1 counters onto our creatures. Semic Ascendancy's back, Quilled Great Worm's back, but we also have Lucas Stadium, aka Strixhaven Stadium, which puts a point counter on it anytime we tap it, as well as whenever a creature that we control deals combat damage to an opponent. But then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all and that player loses the game. Since we're going to be proliferating and adding a bunch of counters to it, this will allow us to get a lot more triggers off on it. And then we also have Family's Favor. Whenever you attack, put a shield counter on target attacking creature. Till end of turn, it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to the player. Remove a shield counter from it and draw a card. That way, again, it's extra protection, it's card draw, and it's allowing us to get some extra impact on it for counter-based effects. Then Sphere Grid gives +1/+1 counters onto a creature whenever it deals combat damage, as well as gives them a reach and trample. A lot more ways to make things unblockable here. Herald of Secret Streams gives creatures with +1/+1 counters on them unblockable. We have the typical stuff: Thassa, Sonic Screwdriver, Aqueous Form, Psychic Paper. We also have Access Tunnel and Rogue's Passage. But then we also have Whisper Silk Cloak, which makes creature unblockable and gives them Shroud. Silver Shroud's going to do the exact same thing, but only gives them Shroud for that turn. It also has Flash, so we could always toss it in. It'll automatically equip itself to a creature that we control to protect it as well. And lastly, we have Brotherhood Regalia. Gives the equipped creature Ward 2, makes it an assassin, and makes it unblockable. Just a lot of simple ways to make things easy to get through and get us a lot of damage and extra card draw. Speaking of card draw, we also wanted to tutor a bit. Now, with the new system, I wanted to kind of stick to about 3 game changers. 3 to 4, depending on what they are. For this, we have Crop Rotation and Natural Order as 2 of our lovely game changers. Natural Order will make a sack a green creature to search for any green creature in our deck and put it onto the battlefield. Crop Rotation will make a sack a land and search for any land card. Sylvan Tutor will put a creature card from anywhere in our library right on top. Fauna Shaman will allow us to discard a creature card to search for any other creature card to put in our hand. Ovia's back to cheat them out. Monster Manual's there to assist in that endeavor. Then there's also Threats Undetected. Search your library for up to 4 creature cards with different powers and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of them. Shuffle the chosen cards into your library and put the rest into your hand. That's going to allow us to pull out pretty much like 1 guaranteed attacker, 1 just big beefy creature, which we're about to get into. And then guarantee that we're at least going to get one of them, one of each, into play. Speaking of big stompy creatures, we got Managorger Hydra and Clonian Hydra back. We also have Stonehoof Chieftain. But then we also have Ouroboros, question mark, I'm not too sure. Beginning of combat on your turn, put X+1/+1 counters on each creature that I control, where X is this creature's power. Allowing us to essentially get a base 1 to a base 2 every turn, but with all the counter doubling and stuff, we're more than guaranteed to get extra counters out and allowing us to get our creatures as big as humanly possible. Pathbreaker Ibex. Whenever this creature attacks, creatures you control gain trample, get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. This applies to any of our creatures, not just Pathbreaker Ibex, like Ouroboros. So even something like Hierophant Biotitan, Galta Primal Hunger, which that's also back from the last deck, or even something like Mossborn Hydra. It'll give all of our creatures +X/+X equaling to their power, and allowing us to get a bunch of extra damage out and closing out games as fast as possible. Prime Speaker Zagana is another one here. When she enters, she'll enter with X+1/+1 counters on her, where X is greatest power among creatures that we control, and we also draw cards equal to her power, allowing us to get a bunch of extra card draw. Another really big creature for somewhat cheap, especially when we have something like Hierophant Biotitan kind of going here, which it's a 12 mana creature for a 12/12, but we can remove +1/+1 counters from creatures we control to make it cheaper, allowing us to practically cast it for 2, similar to Galta. But it also is a little bit hard to block, as it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, allowing us to kind of force our opponents to block big and to potentially get through, possibly destroy their bigger creatures. Then we're back to our smaller creatures here. The only ones that is new in here is Blighted Agent. It's going to be an extra way of a win con here, allowing us to hit through our opponents as well as get some infect damage on it. Getting counters on it's going to allow us to potentially win games right off the bat like that. And with the protection, we have one of our last game changers here, Fierce Guardianship. There's also Force of Negation, Mana Drain, Swan Song, which are all going to be really, really strong counter spells. Fierce Guardianship, Force of Negation can be pretty much cast without needing to pay any mana. There is Simic Charm, which will allow us to protect our creatures with hexproof, or allow us to return a creature to our hand, as well as buff our creatures. Stubborn Denial is also going to be a pretty cheap one here. A 1 mana counter spell if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. Lazotep Plating is also going to give all of our creatures hexproof, but also give us a 1/1 on top of it. Rapid Vigor will pretty much counter a board wipe, unless it is something like Wrath of God that prevents our creatures from being able to be regenerated. And then lastly, we have Inspiring Call, which will draw us a card for each creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it, and then make them indestructible. So that is the difference between the two decks. As you can see, he's not as strong as in a bracket 3-4-ish. But then I could probably just like get rid of Gaia's Cradle. Replace with something else like an island or something. But Machine Gun's Effigy is one that I actually also want to talk about. You may have it enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except for its artifact. With tap to add blue. This will allow us to copy something like Ornery Tumblewag, Prime Speaker Zagana, Pathbreaker Ibex. Some of those big impact creatures. Or even some of our like support here, Herald of Secret Streams or Thassa, to allow us to get some extra impact out and support. Great Henge is going to allow us to get some extra life, as well as put counters on our creatures whenever they enter. Eternity Elevator is going to give us a bunch more mana as well. Tropical Island's there because it's Tropical Island. There's Nesting Grounds to move around our counters. Otawara being able to remove targets. So there's definitely a lot of great pieces in this deck. It's just the issue that there's not a whole lot of like workaround for Marcus, because Marcus is just one of those creatures that just don't really work in a high power environment. Because he's really slow. He's 5 mana. He doesn't do a whole lot other than draw you some cards or get a counter on a creature, which sure we're in green, so clearly we're not putting just one on. But comparing it to the cheaper version, like if we go back to that, like I personally playing this deck was finding it to be a lot easier to do more, and found it a lot more fun because I did play both versions with my friends, and the cheaper version was just so much better. But again, if you're playing like, you could even take out those 4 game changers and replace them with like cheaper versions that aren't game changers, and it probably won't be all that bad. But it's one of those things that if you're willing to spend the money, do it. If not, I don't recommend it.